Namaste everybody. Welcome to this live webinar by UTHO, UK Telugu Hindu organization, on the importance of temple management and tuning it to the current times and expectations. Before we start the program, I would like to thank and welcome our guest speaker, Shri L.V. Subramanyam ji, for taking time for us and joining us today. Also, before we start the program, I would like to wish you all a happy Guru Purnami. Today being the auspicious day of Guru Purnami, let us all celebrate and pay tributes to all our rich gurus. Before we start the program, let me give you an outset into what is UTHO. UTHO, UK Telugu Hindu organization, is formed in 2017 by like-minded friends to unite all Telugu Hindus on one platform to celebrate, to learn, to cherish, and to promote the Hindu Telugu values, the culture, and pass it on to the next generation. Samskar, Seva, and Sangathan are our three core principles that drive us forward. Samskar, Seva, Sangathan being our foundations. Sangathan is to unite people, and when we unite, we do Seva, and to do Seva, we need Samskars. So all the UTHO programs in the past and in the future will always be guided by these three fundamentals. In the last 1 year at least, UTHO has been very active in providing all the necessary events at the right time whenever there is a need in the community. Be it when we raise the blood donation drives, be it when we have done a webinar on the COVID situation, be it raising funds when we needed during the migrant crisis in Bharat, be it when there was an attack on innocent Hindus in Bainsa, we were there to support them. So as per the situation demands, UTHO strives and stands up to the occasion. Let us watch a small video on the last 1 year's journey of our UTHO in the next 2 minutes.
Namaste.
Welcome to UK
Telugu
Hindu
UTHO.
మన సంప్రదాయాలకు క్రమంగా దూరమవుతున్నారని గమనించిన హేమ
We are in unprecedented times.
Just take 10,000 units of vitamin D every day until this COVID is over.
భారత భూఖండంలో ఫాస్టెస్ట్ ఇవాంజలైజేషన్.
Thank you for that, Harish ji, for sharing. So now, before I pass it on the baton to Hema ji to invite our guest speaker, I would like to thank some of our eminent personalities that are present amongst us and for joining us. That is being Shri Chandrakant ji from HSS, Shri Ravindra ji, Shri Vinaya Sharma ji from Vishwa Hindu Parishad, Shri Ambekar ji, Mrs. and Mrs. Ambekar ji, and Poonam Kakkar ji, and all other amongst us. We also have a special guest, Shriman Y. Sudarshan Rao Garu, who has been the chairman of ICHR in Bharat. So thanks for your all time, thanks for your guidance. So I now pass it on to Hemaji.
Happy Guru Purnima to everyone. Today is a very auspicious day. I'm very happy that we are doing a very Hindu-related post today. Hindu-related talk by none other than L.V.S. Subramanyam garu on tuning temple administration to current expectations. Temples issues have been at the forefront for last few years. Hindus are showing increased amount of concern regarding temple management, or if I may say, sometimes mismanagement lately. Hindus are waking up to the fact that government's interference in Hindu religious beliefs and also in places of their worship is a matter of concern. The ugly fact, the ugly truth is that it juxtaposes against all other religious places like mosques, churches, gurudwaras, Buddhist temples, etc., which are devoid of Indian government's interference. There are some very burning questions in Hindus. Is there a need for the government to manage Hindu temples? If managing, where do they draw a line between temple management and spiritual beliefs of the devotees? If government stops managing, are the people ready to take over that? What are the solutions to a smooth management of temples if the chance is given to Hindus to administer themselves? We have today, as I said, Shri L.V. Subramanyam ji, who is very well known as former TTD Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam Chief Executive Officer and also as the Chief Secretary of Andhra Pradesh. I'm honored to introduce Shri L.V. Subramanyam ji, IAS. I am also very happy that we belong to the extended family of Sadguru K. Shri Shivanandamurti Garu of Bhimli. I know L.V.S. Garu and he is a wonderful human being and has been working to bring a smile on people's faces in these adverse conditions as well during COVID situation. He is kind 20 India's ambassador of Global Task Force, and he recently retired as a senior most IAS officer with an illustrious career spanning 36 years. He is former Chief Secretary of State, I said, and he started off as collector of Mahbubnagar district in Telangana, and he also chaired several corporations, and he was also director of government corporations, for example, APIIC, Andhra Pradesh Sports Authority, Infrastructure Board, Housing Board, or Waterworks. There are several things that he has worked as a director. The list is very long. Today's topic is about tuning temples management to suit current expectations. There is hardly any intellectual or administrator better to speak on this topic than Subramanyam garu. He has been there, he has worked within the system, he is privy to many government policies and administrative strategies, and he has the practical knowledge of the system. A lawyer can speak on temples issue from a law perspective, or a popular figure can speak on from an intellectual perspective, or a historian like me can speak the history of the temple or the architecture of the temple. But there is only one person who can speak from practically working within the system, one who can throw light on the intricacies of the subject and at the same time look at the larger picture too. Tirupati is world's most visited Hindu temple. Nearly 30 to 40 million people annually on average visit the temple, and TTD holds several Guinness Book of World Records for largest human hair donations, largest number of Hindus visiting the temple, or for largest kitchens or dining, providing free food, free meals to its devotees, world's largest laddu making machine, etc. To run such an organization is not an easy affair. Whoever is managing, whether it is government or whether it is passed on to Hindus, even then, it's not an easy affair to manage that. TTD has almost all the departments that would be in a government, like production, engineering, and roads, water supply, human resources, transport, information technology, hospitals, educational institutions. There are several things. The list is very long. So therefore, it's a government of its own. That is not just one temple. TTD also manages temples across India and also other temples in different countries as well. So L.V.S. Garu can give us answers to many questions with his experience as an IAS officer who has handled several boards, including TTT and as a Chief Secretary of Andhra Pradesh. He can also give picture of TTD administration and also road ahead. We all know that the government cannot be holding us for eternity. At some point, Hindu society has to take over. But having said that, we need to look into how smoothly the transition can be done and how we actually can manage temples ourselves, how to avoid all the pitfalls. Let's hear from Shri L.V. Subramanyam ji.
Namaskaram. Sri Gurubhyo Namaha. Vyasam Vasishta Naptaram Shakte Pautram Akalmasham Parasharatmajam Vande Sukatatam Taponidham. I bow down my head to sage Vyasa and then my Puja Guruji, who's everything to me as well as to my dear family member Srimati Hema, who was so active with the UK Telugu Hindu Association organization. I thank all of you for giving me a chance to converse with you on some thoughts. Certainly, I have some experience in this area, but I must confess that the issues are quite complex and it is difficult for us to find answers so easily. So at best, I may be able to provoke you into some thinking about what is happening today in various temples and what exactly is the tuning that is required to be done for the present requirements. If I can provoke into some thinking on that area, I'm sure in days to come, as Hema was just mentioning, and the Hindu society is capable of taking over and managing these temples. I certainly feel at this juncture, it is a very tall order. I am extremely happy that a senior family member, Professor Sudarshan Rao Garu, is also there. We have heard him so many times, and he is our dear history uncle. I also pay my salutations to the elders who have come from the HSS, and their presence here adds a lot of value to our discussions. I would at the outset like to tell you that I drew a lot of help from the book written by David Frawley on Hinduism, the Eternal Tradition. I have also looked at the volume which is brought out by Tirumala Tirupati Devasthanam, mainly to use it as a training primer for the Archakas. It is called Alayam Archanam. This was brought out in 2017. I think all of us, we are quite familiar with these issues, so I'm only trying to refresh your memory and trying to understand at the first stage, what exactly is the Hindu way of reaching the ultimate truth. All of us believe in two things. We believe in worship at home, and then we believe worship at temple. For many of the Westerners who have seen India from distance, they have always found a dichotomy that we are very organized in the house and we are not so organized outside our house. Our Puja Guruji, who's there in my home, blessing me, used to always tell this, that the Western society is very organized outside, their traffic moves very orderly, their civic life is very disciplined, except some stray incidents here and there we see. The way in which the civil society behaves is very organized, but when one gets into their household, that orderliness is not certainly there to such a great measure as we expect. So that's the difference between the Oriental society, typically our Indian society, and how the Western society is there. When we talk about the Hindu worship, as I said, all of us have our own religious background. We have our own way of worshipping, offering our prayers. Sometimes these prayers are half done in the house and half done in the car as we are driving away to the office. Sometimes the prayers half done by the husband are completed by the better half. Different formula are evolved by us, but it is enough if I say that the family worship is something which is deeply connected to spirituality. A while later, I will try to look at the distinction that we need to make between religion and spirituality. So the individual worship, the individual prayers, according to his own tradition, whether he is a Shaivite, whether he is a Vaishnavite, whether he is from the Smarta background, whether he is of Shaktiya background, the prayer undergoes that kind of a detailing, and those prayers are done according to the practices which have been prescribed. But when it comes to a temple, and temples have been there from the Vedic times, it is said that some of these temples have actually come up even way back in the Satya Yuga or the Kruta Yuga. And some of these temples, for example, you know about the Varanasi Kashi Vishwanath temple, is supposed to be of times immemorial. But temples are places wherein a force of collective spiritual aspiration can be the aspiration of a particular region, the aspiration of a particular sect, the aspirations connected with a sage, aspirations connected with a Purana, aspiration connected with a particular river. Like this, you have different temples which have come up in different parts of the country. And then we believe that these temples actually converge the spiritual energy of a section of people, and as the folklore develops about the strength of a temple, and we can say the temple becomes more popular, that more and more people visit, and sometimes the moorings of the temple are forgotten when people visit these temples for even mundane kind of prayers. My Puja Guruji used to always say that certain temples are there only to provide salvation to a soul. So one has to go to those places only with that clear thought in the mind. When this pilgrim is mature to think on that particular kind of a wavelength. To explain it further, he was saying with regard to Kedarnath temple, then one doesn't visit Kedarnath temple with a prayer that he or she should pass in the MSET examination to get medical entrance or engineering entrance, or to get his daughter married away, or to improve his balance sheet. These kind of mundane family desires, my Guruji told, these are not the ones which have to be taken to the foothold of Himalayan deity. He said that these are the places where individuals must visit for one's own evolution, one's own ultimate journey in life. So we have temples of various categories. We have got temples which have, as I said, are also seen as centers to purify the collective psyche of various worshippers who go there. So there's a lot of significance that the Indians attach to a temple. And to the Hindu, the connection between the religion and life is completely made with the help of a temple, and he doesn't see any distinction, just as we don't see any distinction between God and nature, the Prakriti. We worship nature as God, and we see God as someone who controls nature. These two are inseparable. So that's how we have looked at temples, and we have started giving huge significance to it. And historically, we are familiar how these temples have begun to get a lot of endowment, and this endowment has attracted attention of invaders, and how invaders have gone there and they stole the beautiful ornaments from there, a lot of precious things from there, and defiled our temples because they understood that the society was giving huge value to these temples. So this is for a background for us to understand that our temple is not just a puritanical monument which we visit once a week for a half an hour or a 1 hour session, and we say our prayers quickly, and then the rest of the time the temple is forgotten. No, our temple is by its activities around the year, around the clock, any time of the day, except the couple of hours in the afternoons. The temple is active, it's bubbling with activity, and different seasons, different festivals are celebrated with a gusto which is very typical of that particular area, of that particular temple. We know that in the temple's activities, there is place for different groups of individuals, be they artists, be they musicians, there are sculptors, there are dancers, there are people who blow the bugles, different musical instruments. We also have people who do different duties before the deity as the deity is taken out for the procession. And we also have series of animals which are all part of the temple. And animal worship precedes, on some of the auspicious days, it precedes the worship of the presiding deity also. So like this, the temple has multifarious activities, and I'm just only refreshing everybody's memory that these are all the beautiful things which we have imagined our forefathers have bequeathed to us on how we must worship and get closer and closer to Almighty. As part of this temple worship is also the practice of pilgrimage, which there is a particular order in which this pilgrimage is undertaken. Every Hindu believes that before he or she breathes their last, they must visit Kasi, and from Kasi, they are expected to go to Rameshwaram. From Rameshwaram, they are expected to go back to Kasi. Like this, we have got traditions which are woven very delicately into our families, into our traditions of various areas. So that's how Tirtha Yatra or pilgrimage has come to play a very significant role. Different seasons, different temples are very important. There are particular times when one visits more often the Shiva's abode. There are some seasons where one visits Lord Vishnu's abode in worshipping. I'm only trying to elaborate all these points to just drive home the point that temple worship has evolved over a period of time. There is a great deal of sophistication, thinking into the rituals which have been evolved, practices which have been prescribed, materials which have to be used, the agama which has also come, which helps us to worship a deity in a particular way, to arrange the pedestal for the deity to preside in a particular way, the width of the temple, the height of the temple, the distance that the temple must have from where the pilgrims must worship, or the Garbhagruha as it is called. These kind of detailing has been done. So it is not any kind of a comfort structure for any contractor to build the way they want. There is a great deal of specificity which has come into this temple. And people tell us huge scientific data has gone into construction of temple, where it is supposed to be located, in which direction is the idol going to be located, and what should be the height of the temple, and how many steps have to be carved to take one to the temple, to the sanctum sanctorium. So many scientific details are there, and these days in WhatsApp, some of them regularly visit us and refresh our memory to see how temples located on the same longitude and latitude are a great marvel. And how did these people do it in yesteryears when we thought that the modern compass was not there, and when Indian culture was not sophisticated, and then we foolishly hear someone telling us that the Westerners brought scientific temper to the Indian mind. Now, how did these temples come up? And we also saw that in the tsunami that hit us very badly a couple of years ago, Hindu temples were spared, nothing happened to these temples. I remember the 1977 devastating cyclone which hit close to Vijayawada, the Krishna, and where from the Bay of Bengal. Several temples were actually the places where people saved themselves from total collapse. So these temples have been built with a lot of scientific data, with forethought, with a lot of, one should say, phenomenal understanding of nature and how to locate the temple in the midst of that nature. So I think I've broadly touched upon the various things which have gone into the background of construction of temples, temple rituals, temple prasadams, what prasadam should be given on which day, what seva must be done on which day. A huge detailing has been done of every temple worth mention. And according to the position of the revenues coming to a temple, the grandeur is there for all of us to see. And then briefly looking at the aspect of religion and spirituality. As I said, religion is something which helps us to evolve an ethical conduct. Religion helps a group of people, a community, to live with peace, to live amongst themselves with a certain kind of an order. Religion brings that kind of a discipline with this ethical training as a background. Religious training, religion also helps us to evolve a series of practices, rituals, and perhaps religion puts the society on its path to a kind of a evolution. Now, spirituality is the inner tuning of mind, the tuning of behavior, what we call as the samskara, how to enhance the potential of the individual's samskara, of how he could or she could bring a certain amount of convergence between thought, word, and action. So, spirituality helps for the inner reform, the inner re-engineering, as Jaggi Vasudevji says. So it helps individuals to re-engineer, to look at things differently, to talk to people differently, to react differently from before. So an individual who's born, except those blessed few, the rest of them, they evolve through a series of practices, through worship, through blessings of Puja Guruji. Individuals reform, they change, they culture themselves, they bring about this transformation among themselves and see how they are looking at the society and how they find their place in the society, and they see how to move upwards in the society in a peaceful manner, in a rational manner, and in an acceptable manner. So spirituality is supposed to bring that kind of a control of senses, control of one's own behavior, to make him or her a pleasing personality, someone who becomes at some point of time introvert, who is able to understand the ramifications of his own being. And as Ramana Maharshi, the great sage, told the modern man, please inquire, who are you? So this question of who am I the body? Am I the intellect? Am I this power? Am I this wealth? Who am I? This kind of a questioning, it is this spiritual pursuit which reforms this individual, it refines this individual, and that's how ultimately this individual earns a place for himself. May not be, he doesn't become the mayor of the town, but he becomes a chosen disciple of the Guru, or he becomes the chosen soul for the God to take him to a next level of experience. So he is able to face the vicissitudes of life with a certain amount of balance, poise, and he understands where exactly his life is losing its rhythm, and he makes up the loss of rhythm with prayers and seeking blessings. So that's how these two are connected, and I don't have to elaborate that in the process of the spiritual alteration which every individual undergoes, the role of a guru has always been seen to be a huge of a huge catalyst nature. It is said that Guru transforms the disciple even without the disciple realizing that he's undergoing a change. So that's the beauty of the whole thing. So I have dealt on temple, I have dealt on the spirituality. I'll just take about 10 minutes to quickly cover the other aspects which have actually provoked large questions among many of us here. Now, as we moved into independence, as India gained independence, and as we started debating about how we should draw a written constitution for our country, we were very clever that we chose a written constitution because we didn't have a long history of democratic traditions across the country. We had in various parts very, very mature democratic practices from the Vedic times, but may not be across the country. So that's when we thought that we cannot go by an unwritten constitution as it obtained in United Kingdom. So we also went for a written constitution, just as America had done. So we made lists and we said we have got the state administration and then we have got the union government, and we said the items of work must be divided between them. So we said union list is available for the union government to take charge, and we have got state list which has got connection to the state government to act upon, to legislate, and then we have a concurrent list where both of them can always legislate, but whenever the union government legislates, then the state government's legislation has to be withdrawn. So we have evolved this as a style of governance, and endowments, the religious endowments as we call, whether it is the minorities or whether it is for the major religion, it had devolved to the state, and the state began to administer. Very strangely, as many of us are questioning today, state government started passionately getting involved in the temple administration. But since the minorities, their claim for separation in terms of identity was very strong, apart from maybe some political considerations, the minority institutions were not being dabbled by government directly. Indirectly, government has a hand in that. But as far as the Hindu temples are concerned, we have set up the endowments department, and the endowments department in turn, through the enactment of several laws, it started looking at the temple administration. So that's how temples began to be administered. And the popular understanding was that each temple must be governed by a board, and wherever the temple's status was actually determined by the income which comes to a temple. Now, this is a serious issue. Many of us may not really appreciate this, but the revenue earnings of a temple determine what exactly should be the status of that temple as far as the number of trustees on the board is concerned, as far as the level of seniority of the executive officer is concerned, the level of involvement of the government is concerned. It is a revenue which comes from a temple which is considered as a basis. Now, the government also said that those temples which have got earnings of a particular bracket and above that, they would contribute to common good fund. So that good fund money is taken for improvement of temples wherever they needed some additional facilities, some repairs. Similarly, some percentage of the earnings are also taken as endowment administrative fund, and from that fund, the salaries of all the employees are meted out, whether it is IAS officers or the other officers, it is this fund from where the salaries are met. So the temple earnings are distributed for various purposes like this, and no money comes from the exchequer for the management of a temple, whether it is the salaries, protection, or festivals, or anything like that. On the other side, involvement of government also meant that we have the serious challenging situations where political considerations started coming in, and that has really upset several religious bodies, enlightened citizens, because they find that people who have come to occupy some place of privilege to be those who are not very well aware of the Hindu scriptures. They have no idea about the practices, and they are not able to therefore fulfill the requirements which are actually calling upon them because of the responsibility given to them. Plus also, they have begun to dabble with the temple affairs, and more, depending upon the privileges which they started claiming from the temple, whether it is getting more darshans, more tickets, more laddus, things like that, which certainly it doesn't behove of them to be looking at these kind of desires rather than looking at the temple administration to see whether the temple rituals are being practiced correctly or not, the materials which are being procured for the temple's use, the quality of the material, cost of the material, and things like that. As a result, there is a lot of resentment in the society, whereas criticisms have come in questioning how temple have not started playing the role. There are some very interesting roles which the temple has to perform, which actually has been brought out very beautifully in that publication I told you about, the TTD publication, which was brought out in 2017. It is a collection of various aspects of temples. Temple is also supposed to discharge more than 10 to 12 functions. I'll quickly run through the list because it's a long list. So that particular list is sometimes not even attempted by various temples. Now, temples are supposed to be the repository of scriptures. There's no library in various temples. Temple is also supposed to resolve individual problems. There are some temples where people go and take a vow and say that I will speak the truth. And someone who is not speaking the truth had in the past suffered very poor consequences, bad consequences for lying in our temple. So temple was seen also to be performing the duty of a court of law. Temple is also supposed to be a place where arts, the learning of arts, the fine arts was also encouraged, whether it is music, dance, music of different types, Harikatha, the way in which we narrate the Purana, different localities, different areas. Yoga, the practice of yoga, teaching of yoga, Surya Namaskara as part of that yoga. It is also supposed to serve as a place where medicine is disbursed. For example, in Corona, for example, today, COVID-19, lot of principles are connected to our diet. How diet has to be altered, the preventive care, how the diet has to be managed, how diet has to be regulated, what kind of condiments are useful for the food. Now, these are all supposed to be part of Ayurveda. Temple is supposed to be considered as a place for that. There are some inscriptions available, stone inscriptions, which have also said temple to be place for delivery of children. It is also supposed to be like a prasuti nilayam, not so much to have as a ward and a bed and all that, but to support the ladies, the pregnant ladies, in having safe birth, safe delivery. Like this, there are variety of activities which temples are supposed to foster, supposed to nurture in the society. There are people who are, let us say, they have been befallen with some tragedy. They need some care. The temples were supposed to have the kind of a protective homes where these people are taken care of. So several of these kind of activities we no longer see except in some very big temple. These have completely disappeared from the imagination of a temple. So these political, the individuals with political background who have come, they are increasingly interested in fostering their own political interests, but not really looking at the quintessential role of a temple. Then you also have the barrage of questions which are coming today about the spending of funds of these temples, whether these funds are being spent for the purposes for which these devotees, the pilgrims, have offered all these the income. Now that is something which is also becoming a challenging question today. The various allegations of quid pro quo which are coming up all over the place, the several employment opportunities which are being given to individuals are sometimes raising this ugly head of non-Hindus getting appointed into Hindu temples also. Now, one can always doubt, how is non-Hindu getting employed? Now, a person who is converted from religion, he doesn't declare his converted religion. So in the biodata he gives, he still declares himself as a Hindu. Now, there is no way in which the government procedure has not been laid down. We don't thoroughly check up. We go by the declaration. So that is how a person, or sometimes a person is Hindu when he has taken the employment, but due to some influences that he is coming under or she is coming under, they change their religion. But after they change their religion, they don't inform their employer that I no longer belong to Hindu religion, therefore I am relinquishing my job. So they don't relinquish their job, they continue to be there, and at the slightest opportunity, some of them have behaved quite irrationally in a very provocative manner to the causing ire among the pilgrims who visit these places. So these are several issues which are coming in as the ills of the management challenges which are coming, which require the tuning, which is the main subject for us today. Now, I'm only discussing one alternative and I'm closing it for questions and answers. What if the Hindu temples are handed back to the Hindus? Is the kind of a promising solution, and many of us think that it is a panacea for all the problems. I beg to differ, not because of any other reason, but only because there are complexity of the pilgrims, the devotees who throng a particular temple. Now let's take, because TTD Tirumala is the most favorite deity, most popular deity. Your President Hema also took the mention of Tirumala. I'm only talking about Tirumala, for example. Now, if tomorrow, due to some good blessings of Lord Venkateshwara, it is decided that TTD stands transferred from the government control and it is handed over to Hindus. Now, which part of Hindus, which sect of Hindus, which region of the country Hindus would say that they would manage the temple? Now, I am reminded of there, and this happened in 2018, huge floods which came in Uttarakhand, which took away several precious lives of our Hindu pilgrims who went to Kedarnath. In fact, it so happened that I was there in the same place doing the homam, which has never been done before. We went to Kedarnath, we went to Badrinath and did a huge homam, and the people there, they were also very happy, and the homam also was very carefully done by our Vedic scholars and archakas. We just returned. Within a week or 10 days after that, the whole catastrophe unfolded. And because of that, several Hindus unfortunately lost their lives, and the place was devastated. It required huge infrastructure support. It prompted some of us, including me, to say that TTD must donate some amount for rebuilding the infrastructure in Kedarnath. So I don't remember exactly the amount. I think it was 20 crores or some amount like that. I'd announced that grant after telling the board. Board concurred with me. We wrote to the government approved it, and then we said we want to give this money. So one of the public representatives of that area, he made a mention in a public meeting where I was sitting, saying that how can the temple funds be spent for some place way beyond Andhra Pradesh. Now everybody was quite aghast with a mention like this by an important public leader who is very experienced, who is a follower of Lord Venkateshwara. So I had to quickly retort and tell him, yes, no doubt, it's a far-off place, but the collections in the hundi in Tirumala are not the outpourings or offerings of people in Chittor alone. There are people coming from all over the country, and Lord Venkateshwara is worshipped across the country. Everyone worships him. Therefore, he belongs to every household, and he is the father of this entire humanity, and they all look up to him for relief. They all look up to him for blessings. So I had to tell this honorable gentleman that it is not proper. I only brought this up because tomorrow, when this transfer of management of the temple is done, which region will take what shape, which region can take what role, which matha, because under the order of Adi Shankaracharya, Dakshinamnayam is supposed to be governed in a particular way, in a particular order. So how do we position this, and who would decide this, and how will their acceptability be upheld? And these days, we are all quite sensitive to the extent that we are rushing to a court of law on aspects which are highly private and highly personal. Now, these are things which we want courts to deliver justice. It is a very, very difficult proposition, and we are seeing how the courts are able to cope with the demands with great amount of attention and great attention to detail. But nevertheless, it's a huge challenge. In the temple structures again, different roles are played by different caste groups. So there is nothing like one particular caste having an upper hand and somebody else not taking an upper hand. So there is a certain amount of rational distribution of responsibility. So how do we ensure this is done? And so far it has been done in a particular fashion. How do we maintain it for posterity in the absence of the order of the government, the order of legislature running, not running relevant anymore in the event of this transfer? These are the kind of issues which are coming up. in my mind. So it's a very complex, it's a very challenging situation. So maybe it has to be done stepwise, stage-wise, and slowly we must go to that Purna Swaraj, as Bapuji taught us in the independence movement, that the Purna Swaraj can be perhaps accomplished after some maturity, some understanding, and out of some extraordinary behavior of some individuals who are picked and who are given this job, who with absolute integrity and whose loyalty to that particular deity is unquestionable. So we have to perhaps start somewhere like that and slowly evolve set of practices to see that the malicious role, what is alleged today, does not play a role in the management of the temple, and temple also earns the kind of patronage which is required to fulfill its large agenda of activities. If you take Tirumala, for example, today, their budget is more than 2,500 crores. Now, the demand always outstrips the kind of budget that they have got. And today, the bank interest rates are coming down, so holding deposits in the banks, like in the past, is no longer remunerated. So how do these temples cope with a huge demand is a huge question which begs our attention. So these are the kind of points which I thought I must share with all of you. I have lost the practice of speaking for long hours, as in the last 3 months I have been relaxing at home, finding time to pick up literature which is available in my house. I'm going through that. There's huge material which is available in the internet, in the YouTube, trying to get familiar. So I don't think I can go on like this. And now it will be quite interesting if you have some issues for which you want any clarity further to be brought. I'll do my best to do that. With this, I thank each one of you for giving me this opportunity. And I once again pray to Puja Guruji and Sage Vyasa to bless us with deep sense of duty to worship our country, to worship our tradition, to worship our holy heritage, and see that individually we find our level of satisfaction in whichever activity that we are pursuing. Please take good care of your family. I hope we will have an opportunity to meet sometime in near future. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Shri Subramanyam Garu, for touching upon Guru Tattvam at the start on this very auspicious Guru Purnima day. Before moving on to the temple matters, it was a very informative and insightful talk. I'm sure all the attendees found it very beneficial. We have many questions lined up for you. Our team has collected all the questions and are going to ask as many as possible, time permitting, of course. I will pass on to our team now. Over to you, Harish Garu.
Namaste, Subramanyam ji. Thank you, Hemaji. To be honest, the depth and the quality of your discourse and authority you wield does not leave any questions unanswered. But there has been a lot of questions we have collected over a period of time, and I've been watching the group and people have been chatting. So I'm sure those has been answered, and apologies, I might ask something which you already kind of explained. So I'll start with a very popular subject. When we ask questions for questions, there were a lot of questions around endowment department, a lot of rumors and lack of clarity on what is the role of endowment department. Historical reasons behind endowment department, some of the people have asked, saying that it's been, this is a passed on from British rule, so it has been, it is just continuing from that point. And people want to understand what is the purpose of the department, how far it has succeeded in achieving its purpose in last 50 years, in both supporting the temples and Hindu dharma from a financial point of view, from an asset management point of view, particularly from a spiritual and cultural perspective. And one last point, if I can add to that, is though there is a belief within the society that endowment department is used as a cash cow by all the governments. While there is a perception that BJP is different, is it still there? Is there a willingness within this current establishment to let go endowment department? Sorry, it's a long question, but I thought I collected every question that is around. So
yeah. As I told you, the way in which the responsibilities are divided between the union list, the state list, and the concurrent list. Now, when it comes as part of the state list, the state is given some functions. For example, land is a concurrent subject. So land, the state passes laws, center also passes laws. Police administration, for example, is again on the concurrent list. So state government has its laws, Government of India has its laws, but whenever Government of India revises its laws, the state government's laws are automatically withdrawn as a kind of a respect, and that's how it is done. Similarly, medical and health again comes on the concurrent list. So Government of India has its own laws, state government has its laws. If there is a clash between the two, the union list prevails. Endowments is completely in the state list, so Government of India doesn't have a role at all as we speak at this point of time. Now, the state government in turn, as it did with various other departments, it has created this Department of Endowments to look after the endowment subjects. Now, the same problems that, as I mentioned earlier, that when you have a so-called secular government, because Government of India, the Indian Constitution, it says Indian government is secular. Now, I can take a lot of time in understanding this word secularism, because it is something which has been bandied about from one extreme to the other extreme. Now, when the institutions are crippling, institutions are crumbling, it is so unfortunate that the government kept itself aloof and said that it's a secular government. Now, as one of the NRIs very recently spoke to me from UK, no, from USA, I think, he made a beautiful point on this. He said, if it is secular, then government should not touch anything at all. It should touch, it should touch everybody. If it is secular, it should touch everybody. It should also touch Hindus, Christians, Muslims, every faith, and say that we are secular, but we want this brand of administration to come in every institution. If it is not secular, if it is a Hindu Rashtra, as several of us dream about, then it should say that I am looking at Hindu temples because I am a Hindu Rashtra. Therefore, I am managing Hindu temples. It's a very interesting point which this NRI friend of mine was making. So, we, at this point of time, Endowments Department looks after the affairs of the temples. It is a job for them. Now, all of them don't know much about the scriptures, about the place of worship, the Agama Shastra. They are not qualified because they have studied any of the Agama Shastra or Sanskrit or anything like that, which is of great importance and relevance here. They would have done BCom, they would have got some law degree, and they would have joined government service. And in the allotment, he would have landed up in endowment department, though he would have desired to be in some revenue department or commercial taxes department. So, He has no special knowledge. He is given some exposure by refresher training, some special training once he picks up the job. But several of them are quite wet behind their ears. They're not familiar with the tasks which are there. This is on one side of it. But on the other side, if you see, the endowments department, as far as the state of Andhra Pradesh is concerned, I mean, the same thing almost is reflecting today in Telangana also, because we both were administered in a similar fashion. The way in which our temples are organized, functioning, and the series of practices, the modicum of accountability which is there is scarcely there in temples across the country. I have visited several temples outside, whether it is Tamil Nadu, Karnataka, Gujarat, or Uttarakhand, or Uttar Pradesh. I have visited several places along with Puja Guruji and also separately. There is marked difference between the evolution of practices in endowments department in Andhra Pradesh and there. So I don't think it's a completely a negative list which has got generated in Andhra Pradesh or in Telangana. The things are good, but they are a little away from the ideal situation. You must please pardon me for being very moderate in being critical of it, because just till yesterday I was part of that establishment. So it's difficult for me to wipe off all my prejudices. Pardon me for that. But endowments department, I must say, has been doing a good job. It has all these ills, as I said, of people who have converted but who are continuing to work there. And you must have seen the call when it was given that you must verify the nativity of these people to see whether they are still practicing religion or not. A call was given for that. There were very, very unfortunate outcomes at the government level when a question came up like that. So endowments department is presently playing the role. They govern these institutions. So for them, an attender sometimes is more important than a Vedic scholar. In terms of emoluments, an attender or a senior assistant sometimes get more than a Vedic scholar. That's how the unfortunate scheme is there. Now, some of these can be very smoothly altered if I think all of us raise our voices and our disappointment at the present state of affairs. Similarly, there are several institutions which we have inherited from the British rule, but some of them are still there. For example, the institution of district collector. Now, there are some states which have done away with collector's institution. I don't think they have any better track record when they have done away with it. With the multifarious democratization that we have done, the huge number of committees, the huge number of organizations which we have created for elected representatives, I don't think today it is any longer a bed of roses for district collectors to function there. It is very, very difficult. I know it. And I sometimes take pity on my juniors who are today managing the districts, because I luckily finished this in early 90s when things were much better, when public representatives were much more respectful, and they used to maintain kind of a decorum in public when they were talking to collector, and the chief minister was addressing the collector. At that point of time, the kind of dignity that was there today is in short supply. So therefore, the institute, one need not brush all of them, paint them with one brush, but I think some changes can be brought about undoubtedly. These are all the intricate things which we need to do, as I told you, in our path towards Purna Swaraj. Thank you. I hope I touched upon all the aspects.
Thanks, Subramanyam. You actually answered not only answered what I asked for, you actually directly answered the next question I wanted to ask. So but still there is a related question, Subramanyam. One, and there are a lot of people are chatting as I speak. Some of the people are chatting who say they are maintaining temples and things, and then are involved in this situation. So one related question is, I know you explained why Hindu temples, only Hindu temples are within endowment department. I think that you answered it clearly. But one question was, in COVID, we have seen some issues with a lot of priests, purohits, and archakas not being looked after. There is a question related to it. We have disparity in temples, big temples having access to a lot of cash, while small temple doesn't. You nicely explained about the problem you faced with the Kedarnath when you wanted to transfer the fund. But is there a way forward to deal with this? Bigger temples with a more larger funds helping community across India. Is there a way? And then one final question before I hand over to Praveerji would be: you mentioned the change has to happen. What are the avenues available for us to align ourselves with and try and bring the change? Thank you.
Yeah. The one thing which I always find very useful is several of our pilgrims, devotees from overseas, they are always interested to contribute. They want to take part in some fundraising activity. I think we must, as a Hindu society, time has come for us to become a kind of a pressure group. Somebody must take the initiative to create a pressure group for every temple, whether it is the Kanakadurga temple, whether it is the Annavaram temple, or whether it is Sri Kalahasti, any temple, Sri Sailam, and then see that this pressure group actually monitors various activities of this temple, and it also lends services of technical nature whenever required by the temple at a very, very low cost or no cost. I'm just telling this because recently in Sri Sailam temple, they came across a case where some computer operators, they have manipulated the record to show that something like 2 crores or 3 crores or more than that amount was swindled, where people paid for abhishekams, but this money did not flow into the temple account, but this money went away into individual accounts of those employees. They were all caught, and I think there's an inquiry now, and some criminal action is also being taken. Now, just imagine if only we had some 3-4 good companies, software companies, coming and saying that these are our credentials, these are the kind of people whom we have. We will give this temple 24/7 services which are absolutely top class, not compromised. And if we will deposit this 1 crore of rupees with your temple and say that this is a guarantee amount, it's a faith guarantee fund we are keeping with you, that if any one of us do not behave in the appropriate manner in terms of delivery of services, you can please deduct whatever amount you think is required. If only we come up with some kind of an option like this, because government, end of the day, is answerable to the public. So if an executive officer calls a particular organization from Hyderabad and says, please provide your services in Sri Sailam temple, this particular executive officer is immediately taken to task because he did not call for tenders. Now he has to call for tenders, and in the tenders, whoever has quoted the least, who gives a beautiful record of his manpower, the man hours that these people have logged in, all the other criteria, and since it is the lowest cost, we give that fellow, and after that, once the guy has got his contract, once he sets his foot inside the temple premises, now we keep saying that he should only employ Hindus, he should not bring other people of other faith. So all that is done in a very perfunctory manner. And unfortunately, the executive officer there, someone like me, is not very familiar with the computers. So I blindly depend on these computer operators, and you see what a kind of a tragedy that has happened. Similarly, the temple spends, let us say, annually, a temple like Tirupati, Tirumala temple, we spend more than, let's say, 500 to 600 crores per annum on items which go into making of laddu, for example. 500 crores. Now, when we call for tenders, the kind of problems we face, the people who go to man the procurement cell, they are always scared to work there. I used to always have a perpetual request from those people, sir, kindly put us anywhere else, not in marketing. It is called a marketing department in TTD. They say, sir, kindly put us somewhere else. Because they become answerable to everybody. Now, people can write about them. People can cast aspersions on them. All kinds of allegations are hurled at them. So they strictly go by L1 principle. So whoever has given least cost, they buy. Sometimes we used to find that the shawls which were bought on the lowest tender principle, they're not really looking, really a good purchase. Now, why can't we give it to some mill which is going to give a customized shawl? We can't, because we are supposed to buy, or we are supposed to ask such a shawl manufacturer to donate. So we sometimes, in a benign way, we compel them to donate some number of shawls so that we can use the shawl. I'm just giving an example of a shawl. But like this, we do several places. Because when we go for procurement, we have this problem of least cost. So people from the NRIs, as all of you are, some of you, please form into groups of your knowledge. Please see if you can liaise with somebody here, form into a pressure group, provide an offer to these temples which cannot be challenged on the platform of performance, because as I said, you're giving some deposit of faith, and then your performance is so extraordinarily good that the government is compelled to continue with such services. And maybe you will do it for 2 years, 3 years, and you will say 3 years I'll do Kainkaryam. I'm taking sabbatical for 1 year. I'll come and work like that. I had some offers of sabbatical like this when I was in medical and health department. There were people who used to say that we wish to come and work on sabbatical for a couple of weeks, 3 weeks, 4 weeks, 5 weeks. Why don't you create a roster so that we can come and work? Same thing can happen in a temple. So I think you must map your talent and areas of work and give ideas to temples. I'll just take another minute. For example, hundi collection, the hundi counting. Earlier, it was only done by TTD staff. I had an opportunity to discuss about this issue as executive officer. There was a problem because a large number of employees were not turning up for counting of the hundi collections. So the moolas, that is the bags, they were piling up. So the JUO was quite worried. So he came to me and said, sir, the moolas are not getting exhausted because employees are not coming. I said, why employees are not coming? They said they're finding it a problem because sometimes when they open the bags, there's dust. Some of them are complaining that they're having problems with that. I said, why should we force our employees? Why don't you throw it open to the pilgrims? All my staff were aghast with my idea. They thought, this executive officer is coming up with some outlandish solutions. I persisted with the thought. I discussed with them. I asked them, what are your problems? What is your worry? I listed up the worries. I said, okay, let's qualify that people who have to work in hundi must have got experience in counting cash. Every citizen has experience in counting cash. We may have a problem of counting cash in Italian currency or something like that, but certainly for all of us who are Indians, we have no problem in counting the Indian cash. But I said, okay, I go with you. So let's say somebody who worked in the banks will give preference. Somebody who worked in particular areas will give preference. There's yes, sir. So we put out all those preconditions. Today it's going on in a beautiful way. People are extremely happy because they're able to do some seva, and TTD had no problem of these molas being piling up. So we can sometimes come up like this with some ideas, suggest to them. That is how slowly, gradually, pilgrims must come. But we must be very careful that pilgrims are of several grades of understanding and dedication. So that's where we always have a kind of a problem, kind of skepticism, that we can't open it up thoroughly. So step by step, I think we must get involved and see that, because I always used to believe, agree with me, I always used to believe that the Lord is watching you. So I didn't have to be keeping a CCTV on me when I'm sitting in my room and functioning, and then telling people because CCTV is watching me, my hands are always clean. I didn't have to adopt that style. I always believe that if I do one single mistake, Lord will not excuse me. And if I earn 1 rupee also in an illegitimate manner, not only me, my entire family will have to pay it through their difficulties. So it is a question of faith. It's a question of deeply ingrained faith, which sometimes we learn due to blessings of Guru. So we need to be very careful that we are devotees and devotees. Step by step, we have to evolve and mature and slowly, I think, get involved in temple administration. Thank you.
Yes, that was again very enlightening talk, explanation. I think it not only answered how we can help, what other avenues are available for us to seek that help. So with that, I think a lot of questions have been answered. As I said, I keep saying that a lot of questions that is being chat, they're being answered. So I'll hand over it to Praveenji for further questions that he has around this topic. Thank you, Subramanyam.
Namaste, Subramanyam. I'm Praveen.
Namaskaram.
Conscious of time, I'll try to club just 2 small questions. A burning question always keeps popping in my mind. It's more about why can't we have a better spiritual experience, and why do we have different classes of prizes for people, and people who pay more money get to have more time and privilege as opposed to a normal person. I keep seeing people from Tamil Nadu walking all the way, and they get to wait and stuff. Yes, we are providing some facilities, true, but why this class difference? And you were close to affairs, and why do people have to be pushed and pulled, while having that 1 or 2 second brief period of darshan? You see, what have you tried in changing that, and what has not happened? I think a person very close to the affairs, you will be able to give a deep insight as to others. I think that's one. And I'll slightly park the other thing as well. Like, you have talked about the budget. You might have an insight about, how this budget is spent, right? What percentage of the budget is spent on restoring or maintaining temples? Not only Tirupati, there are very small and popular temples. These are the 2 small questions. If you can give your insight, that will be very, very helpful.
Now, as far as the budget, I'll answer that so that it's a very simple, quick question. I may forget otherwise. The amount of money that we spend normally for temples, construction of temples, additional facilities, repairs, restoration and all that, which is broadly called as the engineering budget. Let's say the budget was nearly 2,000 crores when I was there. The engineering budget would be something like 300 crores or 350 crores. Now, usually the quality of TTD temples are a grade better than the other temples in terms of facilities for water, toilets, the walking area, sitting area, shade, fans, air conditioners, televisions, dispensaries, first aid, rescue teams, surveillance cameras. All these are regularly taken care of and altered. Sometimes we also add the kind component. Some HCL technologies come, they add some kind component. So we buy some 20 cameras, they give some 5 cameras. Like this also we add facilities, and that's how temples are better. And sometimes we also undertake Gopuram repairs, Pushkarini repairs, and sometimes we also take it up with original kind of a sculpture, so that is a little expensive, but we adhere to all that. So that is by and large of a satisfactory nature. I don't think there are very many complaints about that. The usual ticklish matter is the darshan. Now darshan is always a complex matter because it is because of the god. Let's blame him for this because he's so attractive and he's so fascinating that, believe me, if you make a pilgrim stand for half an hour, if you give him half an hour time and then try to gently tell him, he will not budge. He will still require somebody to push him. And if he's a bulky guy, then you have to pull him because you cannot take your eyes off the Lord. Sammohana. All of us are simply stuck. We are awestruck by this Lord. The Kali Yuga Pratyaksha Daivam. Very, very difficult. So this is the starting problem. So nobody can really take his eyes off or her eyes off. The numbers which are coming to the place are simply unbelievable. And in spite of giving them food, in spite of giving them hot milk, in spite of giving them accommodation, in spite of giving them 24/7 running water, pilgrims are not happy if you tell them your darshan is tomorrow night. You report today, I'm going to take 48 hours to give you good darshan. People are not very, very happy. I myself had this experience. I was walking around in the Vaikuntham complex. I came across a tall pilgrim from Rajasthan. So with my broken Hindi, I indulged in a conversation with him. I asked him, "Kaise hai? Sab theek to hai?" All that. तो खाना मिल गया, पानी मिल गया, कैसा है, आपको आराम मिल रहा है, टाइप लाइक दैट. वो सब ठीक है साहब, ये कौन पूछ रहा है, ये सब हमको दर्शन चाहिए साहब, वो दर्शन दिला दीजिए जल्दी. So people are, they discount all these things what we are giving. You are giving them hot upma, you are giving them hot food. They say ये सब जरूरत कहाँ है, हमको दर्शन दे दीजिए. So everybody is very keen to have a quick darshan. That is the root cause. The numbers are huge. So if you give them the Lagu darshan, that is from the main place where Jaya Vijaya are there, if you allow them to go inside up to the Ramulvari Meda and take a turn and come back and go, your number, the turnout of a number of a particular day is dropping 50%, 40%. So people are not happy. One side. Other side, I also must tell you this, that when we don't touch anybody. I used to go there. I used to stand in front of these volunteers. I used to keep my back to the door, stand there and see the pilgrims as they're coming and going. And I used to caution the volunteers there, don't touch them. Just tell them, Venkateshaya Namo Namaha or Srinivasaya Namo Namaha, Govinda, Govinda, whatever, and ask them to move. Very difficult to make them to move. They'll be just standing there. And even if the gentle push is given, some of them move, most of them don't move. But pulling is a very crude thing. Now, as opposed to this, one of my predecessors wanted to put a conveyor belt inside the Swayamvaru temple. Now, you can't have conveyor belt. It looks like an industrial production house. Now, it's also supposed to be having issues of agama, which are, they become relevant. All that kind of a problem is there. So, how do you tame the pilgrim? How do you tune his mind or her mind so that he thinks it's not important that for me to see him, it is important that he sees us. Now, that's the philosophy which is supposed to be adopted. This is always a real challenge. And today, unfortunate COVID-19 has reduced that. So now nobody is touching pilgrims. But what is the turnout? 12,000 a day. Now, as opposed to 60, 70,000 a day, 12,000 are seeing. Now, what happens to the rest? Are they full of disappointment? Are they becoming more spiritually oriented, as I pointed out some time back, that they're sitting at home and doing their own prayers? Are they getting spiritually evolved? Let's hope so. But these are issues. Now, why should we have classes of pilgrims? Yes, we shouldn't have classes. But is it practical that you can have a chief justice, a sarpanch, somebody else, a opposition party lost MLA, a businessman? Can we think of grouping all these guys and pushing them into the temple premises at the same time? Is a very big challenge. What happens is, from several decades, several people have started having some facility or the other of coming and having a darshan. So if one is going to disturb that, there will be a lot of issues, lot of criticism, and it will be a genuine grievance. There is now separation done on the basis of some responsibility that they're doing. The time at the disposal of Chief Justice is very, very valuable. The time at the disposal of a district collector can be valuable. But if you put both these together, while time for Chief Justice is almost at the 10th point, for the collector, it could be at the second point or maybe the third point. So we have this kind of a balancing which is done, and therefore people who have to attend to various other responsibilities also, we are giving them some privilege. But let us also see in a very different way this whole thing. If the head of house undergoes transformation, what will be his contribution to the society in terms of becoming generous, in terms of giving more, let's say, charity? That is very huge. If a senior officer like me is converted, that I become more dharmic in my outlook, I'm more truthful in my expression, don't you think I'm ushering in Ramarajya? Instead of saying, you also come in the queue, and when you cannot be guaranteeing that I'm undergoing this transformation. So this small queue, which is allowed to go there, they spend a couple of minutes more, they are subjecting themselves to transformation. They can be greater tools to work with, whether it is charity, service, various other things. A disciplined, honest officer can do huge service, and he can save huge assets for the society. So I used to rationalize with these thoughts in my mind when I had to continue this practice. So I cannot help thinking like that. It's very helpful to have, but of course we should keep that to the minimum so that other pilgrims do not complain and it does not become a bone of contention. So I hope I've touched upon all the three issues that you have raised. And let us also understand a parting kind of a thought I would like to leave with you. Without the express sanction of the Lord, nobody can come and have darshan, whatever be their position. It is said, you please read late PVRK's book, PVRK Prasad's book. The chief secretary of the day came twice to have darshan, and somehow he could not have darshan. Several important people I know desire to come and have darshan. They just don't get the darshan. I'm sure many of you must have had that experience. I have that experience that when you want to go, you are not able to go. When you think you have holidays, you don't get time to go to the Lord. So that is a faith, a belief which we have learned from our respected elders. So let's appreciate that if somebody is coming and having slightly more time with the Lord, he must have done some enormous punyam in the past. He is lucky, good that whatever punyam he has inherited or he carried with himself, he is enhancing its value by again going and worshipping the Lord. This kind of a philosophy I used to always adopt for myself so that I am not restless about this issue. Not that we didn't bother about pilgrims, we would do everything possible for them. But that small statement in politics where it says everybody is equal, but some are more equal, is unfortunately true when it comes to temples of very, very huge significance, like you have in Tirumala, Sri Selam, Kanakadurga, Annavaram. All these temples have some privilege of some nature, which is not a major concern for us because the time that should be kept for that is little less. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you for that. I
Thank you.
totally agree about the public figures and people, bureaucrats who hold high positions. But for me, it was always about the relatives of politicians, taking over.
Yeah, correct.
There was no rationalization on that side.
Absolutely. I agree.
The other side is, this 50 rupees and 300 rupees and free darshan, these people used to have different queues and they used to go for Mahalagu darshan. These are the two areas where I had some question, always that confusion.
No, I agree. In fact, I tried my best to have Lagu, and I think only some weekdays or something I could do Lagu. And when people went for Lagu, they were in raptures. They came out, they were just tears were pouring.
Yeah,
but
exactly.
I couldn't do that because let me also tell this, because I thought at that point of time the Lord will permit me to have Netra Dwaralu. So Netra Dwaralu is a dwaram which we conceptualized, which can come very next to Ramulvari Meda. So just the place where Lagu turns, instead of turning to the right, you go straight, you turn left, and you go out of the temple itself. And you exactly land up at the place where you go for Vaikunta Ekadasi, remember that dwaram which is there. So you land there. So I thought in a very foolish way that maybe that was possible. And I tried to discuss with a couple of people. Some of the people who matter, they were not very happy with me in those days. And they said, you will be severely punished by the Lord for tampering with the architecture. I said, well, it's a world of difference. A pilgrim who has a satisfactory darshan, because I define what is a satisfactory darshan. I told my people, a satisfactory darshan is a darshan when I can stand in front of the idol from whichever distance and say, Om Namo Venkateshaya, and then move. That is the time if I can be given. That is a satisfactory darshan. So I tried to work towards that, but it was very difficult because I could not fulfill the Netra Dwaralu. If Netra Dwaralu are at some point of time, if the Lord is kind and He blesses us, then Lagu Darshan is possible for equal number of pilgrims. There is no sacrifice of the numbers, whatever. And I always felt satisfactory darshan is good if the numbers of pilgrims doesn't exceed 45 to 50,000. 45, in fact, is the upper limit I used to think. It gives good scope. Along with that, if Netra Dwaralu can be done, if I'm not doing some sacrilege, then that is something which can be a phenomenal gift to every worshipper who goes to Tirumala. Then it is just like Vaikuntha Yatra. You are absolutely in Vaikuntham, and you can see people in raptures, and they will store the Lord's image at least for 10 years. That is the kind of impact it can make. But I couldn't succeed for reasons which, as I said, without His Lord's permission, not a blade of grass can move in Tirumala. I know that. So it was not at that point of time which had the approval of the Lord. So Lord is very kind. Let's pray that He, at some point of time, shows us the way that everybody gets a satisfactory darshan. Because His Samohana avataram, we have to steal, store, carry in every cell of our body. So He has to give us that opportunity.
Yeah.
Let's hope so. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
very much.
Thanks,
Oh,
Pravinji. And as I said, I think the pleasure is ours. I'm very conscious it's almost 11 o'clock in the night, and I humbly kind of appreciate you kind of staying with it. I'll just close with a vote of thanks. Sorry, Pravinji, for cutting you in. It's my privilege to say a vote of thanks on behalf of UTHO members. Thank you very much, L.V. Subramanyam garu. It was an honor to have you on our platform, sharing your valuable time to provide deep insights on inner working of temple management with massive amount of patience and details, despite it's so late in the night. And I'm sure that I speak for all those present today. This session has provided enough information to encourage on all of us to tease apart truth from rumor. UTHO and its members would take action that eventually would come out of this thought exchange. We look forward to have your guidance in the future, and I sincerely and from the bottom of my heart wish and hope you will join us once again, because there are so many questions that we would want to ask despite you have gone into, as you said, Venkateshwara kind of his attachment is too much. I thank you again, and also all participants who has made an effort to join us today. Dhanyavad. My special thanks to like Professor Y. Sudarshan Rao ji, Srimati Vinay ji, and Chandrakant ji, Ram Vaidya ji, and others who has joined from HSS and other groups. Apologies if I have not taken your name. And again, I thank everyone, and particularly L.V. Subramanyam ji for
Thank you.
that time to us.
I must thank you, all of you. I must thank all of you because you spent so much time in this satsangam. You're thinking of the Lord.
That's true. That's true. I'll say Om Namo Venkateshaya, and everyone stay safe. And we will come back to you. Please watch our social media for future details about our future events. And stay safe and pray to Lord Venkateshwar. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Namaskar.